All right, guys, what's going on? This is Dr. Chad Kuntz here with Josef. Josef, what's going on? We are actually, we had the luxury of kind of showing up. We are here at T180 Personal Training. For those of you that are kind of listening in as well on the podcast, for those of you that can't watch us. Anyways, thanks for joining us for this special edition of the Primetime Podcast. So we're here with Josef again. Thanks again for showing up today, Josef. We appreciate your time. So guys, Josef, he's a personal trainer since 1998. Woo is right. He is a best-selling author. I didn't even know of that. He's been featured on CNN and Fox as well, in the Washington Post and Chicago Tribune as a fitness expert. And he's currently the co-owner at T180 Personal Training. Again, guys, we're here for women in Ballantyne. Appreciate you hopping on today, man. We're going to to dive right in. You know, I really want the people to hear your story. I know you've got a great story to kind of share with people. And so let's just kind of dive right in. So tell us a little bit about how your own health and fitness journey first started for you.
Well, so my health and fitness journey got started because in summer camp, my nickname was Blubber Thing. So I started high school at 13. I was a little bit north of 200 pounds. Okay. And it wasn't muscle. So
sure.
And I was shorter.
Yeah.
So basically, I grew up in the 80s, you know, I was always one of the biggest kids in any class I was in, any playground I was at, especially at the swimming pool. That was really hard.
Sure.
I did not like taking my shirt off.
Yeah.
I was terrible at sports. I got bullied a lot.
Okay.
Just pretty much. So I got interested in health and in fitness. Well, probably the most immediate one was really like to protect myself from bullies.
Okay. Yep.
Because if you got, getting bigger and stronger than the bullies,
that'll help.
Of course, that is a slow road. So there was a lot of delayed gratification on that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I didn't like being the fat kid. Mm-hmm. So studying nutrition, studying exercise, and trying to figure out, and of course, the behavior component, because the what to do part's fairly simple, but how do you do it?
Yeah.
That part is hard.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning more about it all the time. But you're just figuring out, how do I make these changes in myself?
Right.
And then that parlayed in probably like in 98, which, by the way, so I started training in 98. We have a client now who was born in either 97 or 98. She has a job like she's a client here.
Really?
And I'm like, wow, I've been training as long as you've been alive.
Check to that.
And it's awesome. It's not her parents bringing her in, so that's like even more mind-boggling.
Right.
But so someone asked me for help in 98 because they had kind of seen what I had been doing over the past, I guess at that point it would have been like 10 years. But
sure.
And that was it was so much fun. And I had never even heard of a personal trainer.
Really?
Like, what is this?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, I get to talk about the thing that I'm most interested in
in
the world, and like that I can help you with, and you give me
money?
That's a job.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. And you certainly had some motive to kind of get that fire started. I actually did too. You know, I was a really skinny guy in high school, developed late puberty even.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I was freaking motivated, you know. In my family, everyone kept saying, "Hey, you're gonna be the tall guy, right? You're gonna be 6'2", 6'3". That never happened, by the way. So it's kind of like, it's time to get wider if I can't get taller. So it is funny, you know. We all have, a lot of us for sure, have our own little story of like, hey, this is how it first got started. Usually a very strong motivator, right? And a lot of us may have some skeletons in the closet or whatever, just tough upbringings and this and that. And actually, it makes us better people down the road. And that fire is burning stronger and longer, and it keeps us motivated. And that might help us, continue to persevere on that journey when maybe others fall, just because we're so dedicated and we've got such a strong, burning fire. So I appreciate sharing that with us. So as you've gotten older, so you've been training for a little while now.
Yep.
Right? How has, if at all, your workouts changed?
So when I first started, in the late 80s, early 90s, I mean, there was just pretty much bodybuilding workouts. So it was, you had arm day, chest day, whatever day.
Right.
And you were split up into parts.
Yep.
And, well, that's really time consuming, first of all. I mean, not that it's not, it can work. like if you wanted to be in the sport of bodybuilding.
Right.
But, most people don't want anything to do with that. But, so I don't do any body part split stuff, so I moved from that. And just also, as I've gotten older, like every year I get kind of more afraid of getting hurt, really. That's like the most important thing to me is staying safe.
Yeah.
So just focusing on safe things that allow me to still get good results and to feel good.
Perfect.
So that's been the evolution. So no more body part splits.
Okay. A little more whole body training.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm kind of getting?
Whole body stuff. There was a while, used to do like a lot of barbell stuff.
Okay.
I don't do any of that anymore.
Okay.
Like, especially with like all the computer stuff I have to do, like this wrist doesn't extend at all, and that hurts.
Doesn't really want to do that.
No, it doesn't want to. So anything you have to catch or
Right. Yeah, just working a little smarter and harder at the same time. I definitely agree. As I've gotten older, it's as you continue to work out and as you get older, you're going to get nicked up and beat up a little bit. And so have a little more of that thought in the back of your mind as you kind of go in there and continue to train. And so, I mean, even for me, as I look back, when I was, in my early 20s, it was just invincibility. Let me just grab whatever, the 130s on each hand, and let me just muster it up. And oh yeah, by the way, let me put on like my big elbow braces, right? Let me really wrap up. There might even be some chalk thrown in there for no reason, just to kind of like hype me up a little bit. But I think we all got a little bit of that story. Like we just, you were young and dumb in some levels, and you just felt like you could move, whatever weight without the form being there too. So I think that's also a qualifier, right? You can still move the big weight, but you've got to have the prerequisites kind of checked in there too. Do your workouts last as long as they used to?
Yes and no. So it kind of depends on when you're talking about. If you're talking about when I first started, like the first time I got a gym membership, I used to be in there for 3 hours, but it was because, it was just sort of very aimless. I would do an hour of random whatever, there'd be an hour of socializing, and there'd be like an hour of, honestly, who knows, just anything.
Sure.
Maybe cardio, maybe not, whatever, something. So these days, if I have the luxury of time, I may go as long as 75 minutes.
Okay.
That's usually because I'm doing like extra foam rolling stuff.
Yeah.
It's never because I'm like doing extra conditioning.
Purely training the whole time.
No, I'm just, I'm tired.
Yeah, I get you. And I think that, it's important for people to hear too. Here you are, you've trained for a long time, you're still in the health and fitness industry, and acknowledging, listen, life hits you, you've got a couple of kids, and I've got a little girl right now and another boy on the way. Hey, listen, the energy requirements are real. Running a business. And so, everyone could probably resonate that's kind of listening in on this, and they don't necessarily have to be in the health and care and, fitness world. It might be, whatever, going to work financially at a financial industry or the bank or whatever. A lot of people, I'd say, so many more people are busier than ever nowadays. And so to find that extra energy to really continue to fight the good fight is tough. But for them to hear us even say, hey, well, those two guys are, buried in the health and fitness industry, and they too have realized that it's not necessarily those prolonged, crazy 2 to 3 hour workouts anymore. I can speak for myself. It's a crisp, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. I've definitely had inputted a lot more complementary stretching and mobility work and kind of that. We'll call it a safety net in terms of the mobility work that maybe is before, anticipates, or even follows after my workout. So now here's the thing too. Just it's a lot of personal trainers, man. There's so many different styles of working out. Some people are just rough and tough, kind of boot camp style, army style maybe, where it's like just get the job done, push through it. Maybe some are too soft, and maybe it's a little bit of a social hour. How would you kind of tell your listeners right now what your personal style is when training your clients?
So for my personal style really doesn't make much of a difference when I'm training with the clients, because it's about them.
Right.
So it comes down to what's going to be safe, what's going to be enjoyable, and what's going to be effective. We put the safety at number one.
Perfect.
Because if you compromise on enjoyability or effectiveness, if you compromise safety on that, you don't have the other things. Right? So it can't be effective, and then it's not fun. And then fun is actually before effective, because if you're not going to show up consistently,
what's the point?
Well, you'll never get the results.
Exactly.
So
perfect.
And then effective.
Right.
So we're a women's only training studio, so the time we have, most of that is going to be, after we address mobility concerns, appropriate strength training is going to occupy most of the time that we have for training.
Excellent.
Because for everybody, but women especially, that's going to be the key to losing body fat and for keeping the body fat off, and there's a big difference between just losing weight on the scale.
Perfect. I love that.
And losing body fat. And then, so on average, most people, say if you lose 20 pounds, if you don't do any strength training, no less than 10, sometimes it might be as much as 12 of that's going to be muscle.
Right.
So even the scale has moved a lot. You've actually less than half of what you lost is body fat. And every time you repeat that cycle, you have less muscle mass.
Muscle mass, yeah.
When you regain, the weight, you will regain some of that lean body mass, but you're still going to be at a net loss every single time. And if you repeat, the same diet cycle every year for a decade or more, you just end up with a really hard time losing the weight, and you end up with a really hard time keeping it off.
So important. I think you said a lot of really important things there too, especially for the women listening. Man, they run, in my experience with my clientele, they run to the scale and they just put so much weight on that thing. And even someone, they're like, I'm not really, I don't really care. You can still see it, right? You can.
I care about the scale.
Well,
Yeah,
it's like, I understand. So what kind of techniques or objective measures have you guys taken to ensure that you're trying to maximize lean muscle mass and not trying to lose that? Versus trying to ideally, I know it's almost physiologically impossible to only burn fat, but how do you kind of objectively measure that here to make sure that you might have some people that want to go right onto the scale and say look, but what kind of evidence can you show them to say, hey, listen, you're keeping the muscle mass and yet you're burning the fat?
So let's see. If I move to the side, so you can see the.
Oh, there you go.
So we have the in-body 570. So that started in doctors' offices as a medical scan, so it gives you, that's the most accurate way that you're going to get a breakdown of body fat, skeletal muscle mass, hydration, and it actually will even break down the visceral fat that underneath of your abdominal wall next to your organs. So it'll show you very reliable numbers on all of that. So, and when we have your lean body mass number, it's very easy to give you, hey, if you hit this protein level, it's going to be based off how much lean body mass you have.
Nice.
If you hit this protein level and you get your 2 or 3 days a week per strength training, then we're going to be able to at least keep all the muscle mass you have while we're losing weight, and if we get lucky, we might build some.
Exactly. I love that. Just because it seems to be in our American culture, so many women want to just go into the cardio only, right? That'll do it.
Yeah.
But like you said, a lot of that could be muscle that's falling off.
True.
Yeah.
With the cardio thing, we have really sedentary lives.
Yep.
So it is certainly true that moving more is really important.
Right.
However, most people are going to spend 2 to 3 hours a week in a gym.
Right.
So the time you spend in a gym, if you're walking on a treadmill, that is not a great use of the time.
Nice.
Walking places, parking farther away. This is a Fitbit. That's an Apple Watch.
Yep.
Some kind of activity tracker. The researchers call it NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Perfect.
But how much activity do you get throughout the day?
Yeah.
So certainly, walking on a treadmill at home or something, or walking around the house, it can be a way to supplement it.
Yep.
But your gym exercise focus time, that basically you cannot replace strength training with walking, nor can you replace walking with strength training.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not one or the other. You can't replace stretching with something else. You need all of these things. But just when you're at the gym, you're with a trainer, if we throw you on a treadmill for 30 minutes, what are we doing for
Right.
Nothing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So we want to focus, we want to do, when we're together, we want to do the things that you're not going to do when you're on your own.
Exactly. Perfect. Not to mention, you're probably helping a lot of women with osteoporosis, and so would you mind
confidence as well?
Yeah, share a little bit more on the osteoporosis. Maybe some people aren't quite familiar with what that means, and the women listening out there, or maybe they've heard it from their doctor. They know it's not a good thing,
right?
And just so maybe do a little education on how you've seen that help your women with strength training too.
So our bones, they will either get softer or they'll get harder based off how much stress they have. Our lives allow us to live we don't have to put a lot of load on our skeleton. So over time, they just get sort of softer, lose mineral, and that makes them very, very easy to break over time. And also, when a lot of what the height loss that people have with age is that their spinal column just sort of gets softer and it just sort of starts to smush in on itself.
Right.
So loading your skeleton, especially the whole skeleton at once, is one of the most important ways that you can stop osteoporosis, and very often, with enough effort over time, you can actually reverse that process and start to regain some of the bone density and bone mineral that you lose. It's not so much that we lose it with age, it's that we live in a society where we don't have to load ourselves, so the time just compounds the lifestyle factors.
Right. Do you ever get this? This just kind of popped up on me. Do you ever get women that are kind of nervous that it's actually hurting their joints? It's causing more wear and tear, might hurt their spines if they do strength training? Because I've kind of seen some of that too with my clientele. Have you kind of heard of that and heard that from your clients? I
have, and there's on some of the time they're right, and some of the time it's not correct. But so a lot of people unfortunately, they have terrible experiences with strength training, right. Be that in a commercial fitness center, or if they hired somebody to help them, and that person, so for the first 10 years of my career, I worked at a bunch of different commercial health clubs. I had a different manager every 90 days. To be able to, call ourselves personal trainer. Right. If you had a weekend, actually, you didn't even need a weekend certification. The manager would talk to you about 4 hours, and they would say, hey, you know what? You're ready to go.
Wow.
So unfortunately, there's a lot of people who have hired somebody who had no business helping them. So that person may have pushed them to do things that were completely inappropriate for their body, and they might have hurt.
Right.
And that is a really unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
Because being stronger, the stronger your muscles are, the more stress they can take off of your joints.
Exactly.
And that's a really big thing. And also having everybody, everyone falls down, right? We have accidents not because we intend to, but because it's an accident. So if you get in a car accident, you fall down, something like that, having stronger bones and then having stronger muscles to hold your joints together does a lot to prevent you from impact. We've had one lady who's 75, and she fell down, and all she had was some bruises.
Amazing. That's
and
awesome.
She has 2 knee replacements,
wow.
At least 1 shoulder surgery. So she's her body has seen some events. Yeah. But this time, right, she fell down a couple stairs, right. And she was able to get up and go on about her day.
Love
She was
that.
bruised, for sure. It's not fun to fall down.
Right.
But there's the quality of life difference that makes is huge.
It's literally a killer.
Yeah.
Particularly for women, when you fall, not directly from the fall, right? People don't fall and die, but because of the sequelae from the hospital, right? They catch pneumonia.
Yep.
They have an infection from a hip fracture and the surgery with that. The morbidity rate is incredibly high. So for you to say, listen, we've been training with this woman who's already had a couple of knee replacements, so she's maybe already beat up a little bit, but for her to bounce back like that, fall and go on her day is literally life-saving.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't replace that with medications.
Nope.
A diet helps, but that alone,
for sure.
It's not going to save you. Or if you just happen to have your cane, or even, maybe your life alert, but for someone to just get up like that and move on is incredible. Now, you also look at football players, look at the kind of hits they're taking and they're getting up after. A lot of times it's because they've strengthened their muscles and they've done the strength training, right, to prepare for that. In your specific cohort, women, maybe they get in the sedentary job, they've had a couple kids, maybe haven't quite gotten back into living the life they need to. That's a huge pivot for them. It's instrumental to really get back and have that strength training so that, hey, we always have to prepare for the future, right? And hopefully they live long enough and they'll all be grandmas one day too, and should they fall and things happen, to get right back up is huge. So what are some of the most common injuries that you do find that your clients are complaining about with your cohort that you're kind of treating?
Pretty much all of them.
Okay. Every single one of them.
Yeah, I would say maybe there might be only 5 or 10% of the people that we work with who don't have anything. But I mean, everything from the knees, from people having bunion removal surgery, and sometimes that got botched, and they had to get their entire big toe replaced with a piece of metal.
Right.
multiple ankle surgeries, and whenever they have to go back, that never ever seems to get any better. Knee replacements, knee surgeries. I mean, plantar fasciitis, hip replacements, spinal fusions. No shoulder replacements. We have not.
Good. Yeah, those are pretty rare.
Those sound
hopefully
scary.
Still. They're very nasty.
But like shoulder surgeries, everyone who has a desk job seems to have at least some sort of hand and wrist issue to some extent.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff we do to work around.
Right.
The things that just happen. I mean, I know if I have to edit a lot of video on a laptop, my hand's gonna kill me. Like I can't do a push-up after that for at least 3 days.
Yep. Yeah.
So I mean, just pretty much everything. Traumatic brain injuries, cervical, neck fusions.
Yep.
Everything.
It's really important for people to hear that. People aren't here working out, particularly women, right? It's not like all these women are like 20, 25, they've never been beat up.
Oh.
They have these perfect bodies and they're in here working out. You just described the average population that wants to keep working out, and you work with women, so we're speaking about women.
Yeah.
And yes, they've got stuff going on, a little bit of everything. So for those of you listening right now, whether you're on the road right now or you're catching us live, and let's say you are that woman who's 45 and trying to get back into it but not quite sure, and maybe you're thinking, oh, that's not me. It is you, or it could be you, or it should be you. And what you guys do great here is that you'll kind of work around all of that. Right? Obviously, if you're seeing it, if you've just spoken the way you have, you've seen it, you're working with it on a daily basis, and yet you're still able to get results and help them move forwards. And I'll let you explain a little bit more about your semi-private training group and how you guys do it. But you guys can do it in a way where it's controlled. You're not hurting people. You've already said safety's first, which I freaking love. Got to keep things fun, right? Otherwise, you're not showing up.
Right. And
so you're kind of fighting a lot of the main factors of attrition. So we've already kind of combated that. And then, yes, injuries will percolate up. I can almost guarantee it. We, all human. We've got a lot of bones and muscles and things going on, not to mention life happening.
Yep.
So just to continue to strive forwards and to continue to work with coaches or trainers like yourself, it's incredible. It's important. I think we need more people to, I guess I want to say your caliber and your experience. Yes, of course. To work with people where they feel comfortable that they're in good hands and that they are safe being trained like that. I can't really say that's usually the case. And traditionally maybe perhaps big commercial gyms, particularly if they've been trained for a 4-hour workshop and then off you run. Hopefully it's gotten a little bit better, but there is still an extent of, go take your weekend course, and it's a very complicated world. You will see these injuries. You will see all kinds of stuff. And so when you kind of put them through your workout, for you, they need someone there to say, let's modify, I'm here to work with you so you can enjoy this, you can have fun. So
speaking of staff training, so right now we've got one of our clients was actually interested in doing some training just on the side because she's lost 45, 50 pounds.
Heck yeah, man. Nice.
And she started training maybe when she was 49. She was able to do all this by the time she turned 51.
Wow.
She's able to.
It's big.
The impact that's made on her life.
Yep.
She's not she wants it to be like a side thing, not like her main thing.
Sure.
Which is actually perfect because it works with us.
Yeah.
So, but for her, we're on. If she's fast, after 9 months we'll start to introduce maybe, and if the holidays take the toll on her, educational schedule that I expect they will, it's probably going to be 12 months before she gets to work with anybody.
Yeah,
so
man.
It's hard to be that patient. I understand if you have that big box health club, you've got to, the overhead that those places have, you cannot be slow.
Yes. No.
The pressures in those places don't make it possible for you. You can't spend 12 months with.
No. Or we could maybe down the road. I spent 8.5 years to get my degree. It's kind of some of it.
Well, meaning
devil's advocate here.
You can't pay for. But being at the economics of being able to.
Of course.
Pay for 12 months of training for somebody.
Right.
Before they could even cover a shift.
No, it's true. You start to run into the economical hardship that a lot of these big places have. So that's why I really like kind of this. I guess would you guys call yourself more of a boutique, or how would you? not quite.
I mean,
you're pretty
studio, boutique.
studio. You're pretty unique, but when you're unique like that, you can pump out kind of that high quality case, and that's where people should be kind of gravitating themselves to, especially if like the traditional one-on-one training isn't working, or if you've had injuries, you're not quite sure who could really work with me.
Right.
Because I've seen that. I've heard of it from my clients. Like, I tried traditional physical therapy, that sucked. Didn't get me to where I wanted to go, and so they kicked me out to go see a personal trainer. He had never heard about a lumbar fusion or a neck replacement surgery or whatever like that.
Yeah.
I think he was going to hurt me, and then they flake out, right? And that's kind of like, well, the healthcare world didn't work for me, so I'm going to go grab some Cheetos and Mountain Dew and sit on the couch and gain weight and complain about it, So let me ask you this: so you guys obviously do a wonderful job managing and working with a lot of different injuries. At what point, and I know this is a gold question that I ask really everyone that is experienced or working as a trainer, like when do you know it's kind of like, all right, that person needs a little bit more help? And let me just leave it at that. When is it time when you have that conversation with someone you say, listen, I think you need a little bit more help, let's move on?
So at the intake, if someone comes in and they've got whatever sort of red lights on their body in terms of movement, we will see if they have ever seen anybody about that, and if they never have, we'll encourage them to do it.
Sure.
We used to take like a harder stance and like say we're not going to work with you until you go see a physical therapist or something. Right. However, that is completely impractical because
it's not going to happen, man.
Right. It's not necessarily going to happen, and then in the meantime, I'm essentially pushing them to go.
You're pushing them away.
Either to do nothing or to work with somebody who may not care as much.
Exactly.
Or be able to care as much.
Right.
So we encourage people very often, pretty much with anything. Like if we say, hey, you've got, I don't know, say if something's bugging them on the front of their knee, we might say, hey, why don't you try using a foam roller here?
Sure.
If you feel dramatically better after 2 or 3 minutes, maybe you don't need to see anybody.
Of course.
However, if it makes no difference and we try other stuff and it's just like, we just repeat that conversation as we initially say, hey, and you're definitely going to be one of the people that we send their information to, say, hey, it might be time to take a closer look.
Yeah. I like that, man. It's not easy. Nope. And I want, especially, people like you have a lot more experience than most that kind of take a little bit more autonomy. And I don't think it has to be kind of this cutthroat, get out, right? We're going to wait for you. And what's happening is there's a very few amount of great professionals, and I've personally seen, that could really take that person and help them out. They might as well try to continue to work with you guys and experience the benefits of exercising the whole body or the rest of the body in the case of that knee pain.
The rest of the body.
Right. Let's just hold off on that, right? Not the end of the world, and let's strengthen up everything else we can. Otherwise, there's going to be compensations that kind of drip into there anyway. So I like it, man. I think you guys should kind of have that power and the autonomy, and it makes the client feel good. It's like, I can still succeed here. I can still benefit. Yeah. Maybe not the most efficient way, right? Close to, but 80% is better than 100. And to think about all the benefits to all the systems that those people have, and that's what I really kind of narc on all the time. And even when I go educate other personal trainers and what have you, think about if you just send them out and heck, they may not even find someone, or if they do, it doesn't even work out. What about communication, right? It's imperative that whoever they go see communicates with you so you're on the same page. But that is so hard in this world, right? And so that's something that I'm kind of personally trying to take on my back. And so, of course, on the therapist side, it's tough because most are insurance and volumized, and they're loaded and seeing 25 people a day. So for them to call like 5 trainers on the way home, like it takes a lot environmentally on both sides to really reciprocate and have good relationships and know that we're not being territorial, so that we're best for the client at hand too. So I think you've got a really good process there, and I think you're able to better serve people because you're not scared of it. You've already tried some stuff, it didn't work out, and that's kind of like, listen, honey, like we deal with a lot of this stuff all the time. Let's see what the rest of the body's got. If you're really beat up, I'm sure you just modify things. Just try to keep moving. I can guarantee that it's still going to be helpful, because even your MD that's sitting back there talks to her, well, are you exercising? Right? It's almost going to always come back to that. Are you working out with someone? How active are you? Right? How could you ever go wrong with that conversation? So they're going to come back here anyways and be like, hey, my MD told me I need to keep moving. Great, let's just modify whatever exercise we can and keep moving forward. So We've talked, about some strengths already, but I want you to kind of expound upon really the setup that you guys have here in terms of how you train people. Some at home listening in, particularly my women. Sorry, guys, you're not allowed in this conversation. Maybe there's a lot of like weird stuff happening in this world right now, but for the sake of this conversation, let's keep it women only. So what does it look like in terms of your training methods, in terms of, is it one-on-one or semi-private or group? Like, what's it kind of looking like for you guys?
We do small group personal training.
Okay.
So there's a maximum of 6. I mean, sometimes that means on the schedule there might just be one person. And as much as sometimes people like initially they think, oh yeah, I'd love to do one-on-one all the time. When it happens randomly, they're always like, God, this is weird. Like, why is it just you again?
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, get away from me. Quit looking at me.
God, stop bugging me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like my wife.
Yeah, exactly. My wife, too.
Stop bugging me.
Yeah.
But, so we do small group personal training. So it's not like being in a class of 20, 30, 40, 50 people.
Sure.
Where it's not, doesn't matter the skill or anything of that instructor. They are very limited in what they can do or not do for you. They don't necessarily know you. So we do a full intake before we do any training sessions with you. So we know about your medical history. We do the functional movement screen, or at least as much of the functional movement screen is appropriate to do. So we've got some baselines. So we're able to match that up with a periodized program to help you get to where you want to go.
Perfect.
So over time, we're trying to get people to similar places in terms of their physical ability, but where people start in sort of each category is just all over the map.
Right.
Some people literally getting up and down off the floor is a 6-month process.
Okay.
And then for some people, they can, well, actually not very many. Every once in a while, we have a client who can do it push up on day one, as I think about that, maybe once every 3 years.
That sounds about right.
About once every 3 years.
That sounds about right.
And and everybody, most people are starting somewhere between can do a push-up and can't get on the floor.
Yeah.
So it just really comes down to wherever you are, we'll meet you where you're at.
Right. I love that.
We'll help you to get as far along this fitness journey as we possibly can.
Perfect, man. That sounds really good. And do you guys offer maybe like once a week, twice a week, and what are the best results that you've seen with what type of frequency when someone wants to get going?
If your schedule works, 3 times a week seems to be best.
Okay.
We do also offer 4 times a week. 4 times a week just tends to be a bit of a schedule challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
For most people. Physically, I think everyone will be fine with it, but it's more, logistics trump pretty much everything else. So,
Amen to that, man. I see that too.
You've got your family, you've got all the other commitments. 4 is great, but it just doesn't seem to be that practical for most people. 3 times a week is awesome. People travel a lot. Twice a week, which is really 8 times a month, so it doesn't have to be 2. But we give people like homework to do when they're traveling and stuff.
Sure.
It doesn't get used very much. We understand that. We just have it set up that.
Yeah.
We'll give you a little bit of nutrition homework. Get some walking in.
Sure.
Get in here 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And we can get some good stuff happening.
Yeah. So let's say we got a 45-year-old listening to this, and they're like, you know what? My kids are in high school, and I feel like I can start to make this happen for me, but I want to see results.
Yep.
So what's kind of the timeline that you would suggest to give them before they realistically see the results that they're looking for?
Well, I'm going to give you the cop-out answer, right? It depends. I mean, It really depends on a lot of things. But say if you're coming in and you haven't exercised and you haven't recently been on a bunch of low-calorie diets, so we don't have like a kind of metabolic hole to dig our way out of. If you come in kind of, just middle of the road-ish, then realistically dropping, 1 percentage point of body fat per month is realistic.
Okay.
1% may not sound like a lot over 1 month.
Right.
Usually it's going to be more, but that average. So you think about a year, it's 12%.
Okay.
So the average woman here starts in the low 40s.
Okay.
So to go from 42 to 30% is, that's
huge.
A night and day difference
Right.
Aesthetically, and it's a night and day difference for health as well.
Right. And you guys do some cool stuff too here. I think you guys even do some cooking classes.
Yes.
Maybe some stuff besides just the training, which I love. It's very community, very collaborative based. So just kind of spill over a little bit of some ancillary services that you guys kind of offer.
Nope. We did, so 2 weeks ago, my wife, who's the co-owner, and she's the brains behind this operation, I work for her.
You're the brawn?
Am I even the brawn?
I am brawn and the brains. No, I'm just
I do
joking.
something. I show up to work for her.
Right. I love it.
But, I need somebody to keep me in check.
Of course, yes, sir.
I would be lost without her.
Right.
So she organized a cookie decorating class. So we have a client who, amongst her many talents, is she does like these amazingly beautiful like little decorative cookies for like corporate events or like holidays or stuff like that.
Nice.
We got some for our kids. We got some unicorns, which they looked at them like, it's too pretty to eat, and that lasted 5 minutes and they ate them. But so that was really cool. Like they got to just work on just decorating the cookies. They were small cookies. There was only 4 of them. So it may seem like a little bit, why would you do that? But it's it's about having balance. It's not saying, hey, you can't ever have a cookie for the rest of your life.
Exactly, man.
So just figuring out how to...
You're just being realistic.
Just be realistic.
Be realistic,
right.
man.
Be realistic.
There's so much more hype in the health and training and fitness world. Like, lose 30 pounds in 30 days. Like, all that stuff is slammed down our throats all the time. And here you guys are kind of saying, hey, we're even kind of host a cooking class. Come on out, enjoy some friendship, and enjoy kind of letting loose a little bit. We still have goals to achieve, but just kind of getting out and about. And like you said, being realistic, which is awesome. Who wouldn't want to work with these guys based upon what we've talked about? So let's kind of talk about that a little bit. So and I'm actually looking at your board right now, and it says current membership, and you guys are really close to 100%. So these guys are kind of tough to get into, so you might have to be patient when you get in because you're kind of working with the best, working in the Ballantyne best in the area, so you just got to keep that in mind. So let's say someone's able to still inquire, they're still interested, they'd like to work with you. So how could someone kind of get started with you? What do they need to get started? What's that process looking like?
So we have space for about 7 clients at this point.
Okay.
Plus or minus, depending on if someone goes on vacation for a month or something. So most people start out with what we call the 10-day spark, and that includes the starting point session where we go over your functional movement screen and in-body scan and kind of get you started for a baseline for nutrition and also for exercise. And then also includes 3 training sessions after that. So that's normally $99, and then since they're being sent here by the podcast, we'll take $20 off of that. Look at that.
Boom. Heck yeah, that's awesome. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. This was fantastic, man. I think we could probably talk for hours because I just love talking about this stuff, and then as we're talking, like more stuff's popping up. But let's put a pause there. Is there any last minute words or last things or anything you want to close with that our audience needs to hear about?
So one of my favorite things to say to clients when they are struggling or when they're starting out is, it's not easy, but you are worth it. I think it's really important to make sure that you take time to take care of yourselves.
Heck yeah.
It's popular for a lot of women to be told that they should exercise so that they can be better wives or sisters or whatevers. And while those are all real benefits, it's also just important to do it because, it's mostly important for you to do it because it makes you feel good, because you want to do it. It doesn't matter if it doesn't benefit your family, although it will, but that's not the point.
Right.
Taking care of yourself,
I love that. That's big.
Will change your life.
Yeah. And I'll just touch on that too. A lot of women that I've worked with are nurturers. Like, they just come from a good place. They come from a good heart, right? And so maybe a lot of them that you're starting to work with, they've kind of gone through the whole phase. It might be empty nest syndrome time or what have you. But putting that energy into yourself and starting to really reap the benefits and being strong for yourself will also spill over into the friends and family. But you're going to actually feel better too. And it's kind of like, for really important for women to just continue to take care of themselves, which can only help them take care of others, right? Be selfishly unselfish is kind of another way of looking at it. So, hey, my man, this was awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate everyone for tuning in live if you were in here. And otherwise, we'll talk to you guys later.